The thumb slides across the glass, a familiar rhythmic motion we've done 1,000 times today. Then, a small click. We toggle the switch and the little icon of the airplane appears. Suddenly, the world stops vibrating in our palm. The silence that follows isn't immediate. It's more like a physical weight that settles into the room. We can hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, a sound that was always there but buried under the digital noise. We notice the way our chest rises and falls a bit shallow at first, then deeper as the realization sinks in. For this moment, no one can reach us. There is a small, sharp ache in the center of the chest, a quiet anxiety that asks, what if I'm missing something? It's a phantom limb of sorts, and the itch to check a notification that isn't coming. But we stay here sitting on the edge of the bed, or perhaps on the sofa where the fabric feels cool against our skin. We listen to the house breathe. We listen to ourselves breathe. We've been living in a world that demands our attention like a hungry child, haven't we? It feels as though we are constantly standing in a crowded room where everyone is whispering our name at once. Every ping, every red bubble, every scrolling feed is a tiny tug on our sleeve. We've become so used to the noise that when it stops, it feels almost unnatural. We feel a bit naked without the constant stream of other people's lives filling the gaps in our own. It's exhausting to be this available. It's draining to have our internal rhythm dictated by an algorithm that doesn't know we are tired. We find ourselves reaching for the phone before we are even fully awake, letting the world rush into our minds before we've even had a chance to say hello to our own souls. We are overstimulated, not because we are weak, but because we were never meant to carry the weight of the whole world's information in our pockets. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. It's interesting how we've come to fear the stillness. We treat silence like a void that needs to be filled with a podcast, a video, or a scroll through a stranger's dinner photos. But what if that void isn't a hole? What if it's a clearing? We've been hacking through the dense brush of data and demands for so long that we've forgotten what it feels like to stand in an open field. We think that if we aren't informed, we are falling behind. We think that if we aren't connected, we are becoming invisible. But in this rush to be everywhere at once, we've ended up being nowhere at all. We are physically in our living rooms, but our minds are scattered across a dozen different time zones and 100 different problems that aren't ours to solve today. Have we ever noticed how the most important parts of us don't speak in a shout? They speak in the same way the light changes in a room at sunset. Slow, steady, and without any fanfare. When we are constantly bombarded, we lose the ability to hear those subtle shifts. We lose the ability to feel the difference between what is urgent and what is actually important. We've been living on the surface of our lives, skittering like water bugs on a pond, afraid that if we stop moving, we might sink. But sinking isn't always drowning. Sometimes sinking is just finally touching the ground. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. There is an old story about a man named Elijah who was tired. He was more than just tired. He was spent. He had done everything he was supposed to do, and yet he found himself hiding in a cave, overwhelmed by the chaos of his life. He was looking for a sign, a direction, a reason to keep going. The story tells us that a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks, but the divine wasn't in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the divine wasn't in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the divine wasn't in the fire. We often look for the answers in the big things, the big breakthroughs, the loud proclamations, the massive changes. But the story says that after the fire, there came a gentle whisper, a still small voice. It was only in that total quiet, after the noise of the elements had passed, that he could hear what he needed to hear. We are often like Elijah, waiting for the earthquake to tell us what to do, while the whisper is waiting for us to just turn off the television. We think we need a grand plan for a quieter life, a radical move to the mountains, or a total deletion of our digital existence. But perhaps it's simpler than that. Perhaps the quiet life starts in the small gaps. It starts in the 30 seconds we spend waiting for the kettle to boil without checking our emails. It starts in the walk to the car, where we leave the phone in our bag and just look at the way the shadows of the trees stretch across the pavement. These tiny pockets of silence are like oxygen for the soul. They allow the dust to settle. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. We often believe the lie that productivity is the only measure of a day well spent. We feel guilty for the dead air in our schedules. If we aren't consuming, we feel like we are wasting time. But we are not machines that need to be constantly fed with data to function. We are more like gardens. A garden needs seasons of dormancy. It needs the winter where everything looks dead on the surface, but is actually resting and preparing deep below. Our constant overstimulation is like trying to force a garden to bloom in mid-January. We are burning ourselves out trying to maintain a permanent summer of connectedness. We find ourselves wondering why we feel so anxious, even when things are technically fine. It's because our nervous systems are tuned to a frequency of constant emergency. The little red notification dot is designed to trigger the same part of our brain that once looked for predators in the grass. We are living in a state of high alert for things that don't actually matter. We are reacting to breaking news that will be forgotten by tomorrow morning, while the real news of our lives, our growing weariness, our need for touch, our desire for beauty, goes unread. We have become experts at knowing what is happening in the world, but strangers to what is happening in our own hearts. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. Let's think about the weight of the things we carry. Not just the physical weight, but the mental clutter. Think of your mind like a room. For most of us, that room is packed floor to ceiling with boxes. Boxes of other people's opinions, boxes of tasks we haven't finished, boxes of news cycles and social media debates. There's barely enough space for us to sit down. When we crave a quieter life, what we are really craving is some floor space. We want to be able to stretch out and just be without bumping into a demand or a distraction. We don't need more storage. We need to stop letting new boxes in the door. We can start with a buffer hour. This is our first practical anchor. It's not a rule, just a gentle suggestion. We choose 1 hour a day, maybe the first hour after we wake up, or the last hour before we sleep, where the digital world is not allowed. In this hour, we move at a human pace. We notice the texture of the wooden table under our hands. We watch the steam rise from a cup of tea swirling in patterns that are never the same twice. We might look out the window and notice the specific shade of gray in the clouds. The scenario is simple. The phone stays in another room, or perhaps tucked away in a drawer. The micro action for the next 24 hours is to find just 10 minutes where we do absolutely nothing but notice our surroundings. No music, no scrolling, no improving ourselves. Just 10 minutes of existing in the room where our body is. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. There is a certain fear that comes with, this isn't there. We worry that if we stop the noise, we will be left with thoughts we don't want to have. We worry that the silence will be a mirror showing us things about our lives that we've been using the noise to ignore. But we have to remember that we are safe in the quiet. The thoughts that surface are not enemies. They are just messengers. They are the parts of us that have been trying to get our attention while we were busy looking at a screen. When we give them space, they don't have to scream anymore. They can speak in that gentle whisper. We can acknowledge them and let them pass like clouds moving across a still lake. We often think that clarity comes from thinking harder, from researching more, from gathering more opinions. But clarity is usually what's left when the noise stops. It's like a glass of muddy water. If you keep stirring it, it stays cloudy. If you set it down and let it be still, the mud settles to the bottom and the water becomes clear. We've been stirring the water of our lives for years, wondering why we can't see the path ahead. Maybe the answer isn't a new strategy. Maybe the answer is just to set the glass down. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. Our second practical anchor is the analog minute. This is for those moments in the middle of a busy day when we feel the hum of overstimulation starting to vibrate in our bones. It's the feeling of being fried. When that happens, we find one real physical thing to focus on for 60 seconds. It could be the cold water on our hands at the sink. It could be the weight of a stone in our pocket. It could be the feeling of our feet pressing into the floor. We describe the sensation to ourselves in our heads. The water is cool. The soap smells like lemon. The porcelain is smooth. This pulls us out of the digital ether and anchors us back into the physical world. The micro action for the next 24 hours is to do this once when you feel the urge to check your phone out of boredom or stress. Instead of the screen, choose the sensation. We have been taught that more is always better. More information, more friends, more opportunities, more speed. But there is a quiet dignity in less. There is a richness in knowing one book deeply rather than skimming 100 articles. There is a peace in having 3 close friends rather than 1,000 followers. There is a beauty in a slow Saturday morning that isn't documented for anyone else to see. When we choose a quieter life, we aren't losing out on the world. We are finally showing up for our own. We are reclaiming our time as a sacred resource rather than a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. Let's look at the third practical anchor: selective silence. This involves identifying one source of noise in our lives that doesn't add value and gently letting it go. It might be a news site that only makes us angry. It might be a social media app that leaves us feeling inadequate. It might even be a habit of keeping the TV on in the background just for noise. The scenario is to notice which noise feels the most draining. The micro action for the next 24 hours is to mute, unfollow, or turn off that one thing for just one day. See how the room feels without it. Notice if the air feels a little lighter. I remember a story of a woman who felt she was losing her mind to the pace of her life. She was a mother, a professional, a friend, a daughter, and she was online for all of them 24 hours a day. She felt like a piece of silk that had been stretched too thin until the fibers were starting to snap. One evening, her power went out during a storm. At first, she panicked. She checked her phone, but the signal was weak. She couldn't work. She couldn't scroll. She sat in the dark with a single candle, and for the first 20 minutes, she felt a frantic buzzing itch in her fingers. But as the hour passed, something shifted. She watched the way the candle flame danced, the way it cast long, soft shadows on the walls. She heard the rain hitting the roof, not as a background noise to her emails, but as a symphony. She realized she hadn't listened to the rain in years. She sat there for 3 hours, just breathing, just being. When the lights finally flickered back on, she didn't feel relieved. She felt a sense of loss. She realized that the darkness was actually where she had found her light. She didn't move to a cabin in the woods the next day, but she did start leaving her phone in a basket by the front door when she came home. She started choosing the candle over the screen. She found that the world didn't fall apart because she wasn't watching it. In fact, her world, her real immediate world, finally started to come together. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. We are so used to the drama of our emotions. We think that for a feeling to be valid, it has to be intense. We seek out content that makes us feel outraged or ecstatic or terrified. We've become addicted to the emotional spike. But there is a different kind of feeling that only grows in the quiet. It's a sense of okayness. It's not a high, it's a foundation. It's the feeling of a well-anchored boat in a calm harbor. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't need a like to exist. It's just the quiet confidence that we are here, we are held, and we are enough exactly as we are, without adding a single thing to our to-do list. The noise of the world tells us that we are what we do, what we own, and what people think of us. The quiet tells us something different. The quiet tells us we are beloved simply because we exist. Like the birds of the air or the lilies of the field, we don't have to toil or spin to justify our place on this earth. We can just be. We can breathe. We can rest. The overstimulation we feel is often just the friction of trying to be someone we weren't meant to be. When we step into the silence, that friction stops. We fit into our own skin again. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. Let's take a moment together right now. If you can just let your hands rest in your lap. You don't have to change your breathing, just notice it. Notice the air as it enters your nose slightly cool and as it leaves slightly warm. Feel the weight of your body against whatever is supporting you. You are here. You are safe. The world is spinning, the news is breaking, the notifications are piling up. But right here in this small circle of space, there is nothing you need to do. There is no one you need to be. Just for these few seconds, let the noise of the future and the noise of the past fall away. There is only this breath. And then this one. We often worry that if we become quiet people, we will become boring or stagnant. But the opposite is true. The most creative, vibrant parts of us need quiet to grow. Ideas are like seeds. They don't sprout if you keep digging them up to see how they're doing. They need the dark, quiet earth to break open. When we give ourselves the gift of silence, we are giving our dreams and our insights the room they need to breathe. We become more, not less, when we stop trying to fill every second. We become deeper. We become more present for the people we love. We become more resilient. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. We see this in the way we interact with others. Have we noticed how much of our conversation is just noise? We talk to fill the silence because we are uncomfortable with it. We check our phones while someone else is talking because we've lost the capacity to just listen. But when we cultivate a quieter life, we find that our words carry more weight. We listen with our whole bodies. We become a place of rest for others. In a world that is screaming, a person who can sit in comfortable silence is a rare and beautiful thing. People are drawn to that stillness. They don't need us to have all the answers. They just need us to be there. And we can't be there if we are somewhere else in our minds. If this resonates with you, if you've been feeling that itch for a simpler, slower way of being, perhaps you could just type the word quiet in the comments. It's a small way for us to recognize each other. It's a way of saying I'm tired of the noise too. I'm looking for the whisper too. What is one small thing that made you feel peaceful today? Maybe it was the way the light hit a glass of water or the sound of a bird outside your window. We'd love to hear about those tiny moments of analog joy. And if you find comfort in these quiet reflections, perhaps we can walk this path together for a while. You don't have to subscribe for the content. You can just join us for the companionship. We are all trying to find our way back to the clearing. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. The world will try to tell us that silence is a waste of time. It will try to pull us back into the slipstream of the urgent. It will whisper that we are being left behind. But we know better now. We know that the most important things in life aren't found in the fire or the earthquake. They are found in the stillness that follows. They are found when we have the courage to put the phone face down to close the laptop and to just sit with our own hearts for a while. We aren't missing out. We are finally tuning in. We are returning to the sound of our own breathing. We are returning to the weight of the blanket on our legs. We are returning to the simple, profound reality that we are alive, and that is enough. The notifications will still be there tomorrow, but we will be different. We will be a little more grounded, a little more spacious, a little more us. We don't need to change our whole lives today. We just need to find that one small pocket of quiet and step inside. It's waiting for us. It's always been there. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. As we finish this time together, let's go back to that moment at the start. The phone is on airplane mode. The room is still. You can hear the hum of the fridge, the distant sound of a car passing by, the soft rhythm of your own heart. The blue light has faded, and in its place is the natural warm dimness of the evening. The anxiety hasn't vanished, but it's smaller now. It's just a guest in the house, not the owner. You are the owner of this space. You are the curator of this silence. It's okay to stay here for a while. It's okay to not be reachable. It's okay to just exist. You are not a machine. You are a living, breathing soul that needs the quiet like the lungs need air. Take another deep breath. Feel the peace of the whisper. You are doing exactly what you need to do. You are coming home to yourself. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. We've spent so much time looking outward, haven't we? Checking the horizon for the next thing, the next trend, the next crisis. It's like we've been trying to watch a movie on a screen that's constantly glitching and jumping. It's no wonder our heads ache. It's no wonder our hearts feel brittle. But notice what happens when you decide to just look at what's right in front of you. The dust motes floating in a beam of light. The way the wood grain on the floor looks like a river. The physical reality of your life is so much more stable than the digital one. It doesn't need a battery. It doesn't need an update. It just needs your presence. When we talk about a quieter life, we aren't talking about a life without sound. We are talking about a life with margin. A life where there is space between the thought and the action. A life where there is a buffer between us and the world's demands. That margin is where grace lives. That's where the gentle whisper can be heard. It's hard to hear a whisper when you're standing in the middle of a freeway, but it's easy to hear when you're sitting in your favorite chair with the lamp turned low. We're just learning how to sit in the chair again. We're just learning how to be comfortable in our own company. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. Sometimes we feel like we need permission to be quiet. We feel like we need an excuse to opt out. But your life is your own. You don't need a doctor's note to turn off your notifications. You don't need a spiritual crisis to seek out the stillness. You just need to listen to that small part of you that is saying, "I'm overwhelmed." That voice is your friend. It's your inner compass telling you that you've wandered too far into the noise. It's guiding you back to the clearing. Listen to that voice. Trust it. It knows the way. It knows that you don't need more input right now. You need more integration. You need time to digest everything you've seen and heard. You need time to let your own thoughts form without being crowded out by the thoughts of 1,000 strangers. In the quiet, you can finally hear yourself think. And more importantly, you can finally hear yourself feel. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. There is a gentleness in the silence that we often overlook. It's a kind of mercy. It doesn't judge us for being tired. It doesn't demand that we do better. It just offers us a place to lay our heads. When we are overstimulated, we are often very hard on ourselves. We feel like we should be able to handle it better. But the quiet says it's okay to be tired. It's okay to step away. I will hold your burdens for a while. We can let the world go on without us for an hour or an evening or a day. It will still be there when we get back. But we will be refreshed. We will have something more than just reactions to offer the world. We will have ourselves. Think of the whisper not as a command, but as an invitation. An invitation to rest. An invitation to be restored. It's the same invitation that has been extended to people for thousands of years. From Elijah in his cave to us in our living rooms with our glowing screens. The message is the same. Come away for a while. Find the still small space. Remember who you are. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. We aren't trying to build a fortress of silence where no one can reach us forever. We are just trying to build a home of silence that we can return to when the world gets too loud. We want to be people who carry a bit of that quiet with us, even when we are back in the noise. We want to be the ones who can remain still, even when the wind is howling and the earth is shaking. That kind of inner quiet is a superpower. It allows us to respond rather than react. It allows us to love rather than just perform. So as the light continues to soften in your room, and as the day starts to wind down into its final hours, let yourself lean into the stillness. Don't fight it. Don't try to fill it. Just let it be. Notice the silence between these words. Notice the silence between your heartbeats. It's not a void. It's a presence. It's the presence of your own life waiting to be lived. It's the presence of the divine waiting to whisper. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. Sleep well when you get there. Or if you're just starting your day, walk slowly. Leave a little room in your schedule for nothing at all. Be kind to your nervous system. It's been working so hard for you. Give it a break. Give it the gift of the airplane mode for a little while every day. You aren't losing the world. You are gaining your soul. We'll be here sitting in the quiet with you. We are all in this together, learning how to listen to the whisper in a world that only knows how to shout. It's a slow process, but it's a beautiful one. One breath at a time, one analog minute at a time, one quiet evening at a time. We are finding our way back. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is where we return to ourselves. The phone is still there on the nightstand, dark and silent. The air in the room feels still and cool. Your breathing is slow now, steady and deep. You are here. You are present. You are enough. The quiet isn't a wall. It's a door. And you've just walked through it. Stay as long as you need. There is no rush. There is only this peace.